everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I'm going to show you step by step how you can paint this loose, splashy, abstracted butterfly in watercolor. This is a very beginner-friendly lesson if you're trying to learn watercolor. It's going to really help you learn the wet and wet technique, but there's actually within the wet and wet technique several stages where it's very wet, less wet, and barely wet. And the layering of this butterfly lets you learn to see how your paint, your brush strokes, and your techniques change as the moisture level on your painting changes. So it's a really fantastic painting in and of itself, but it's also a really great learning opportunity. Oh, I see Sylvia and Irene and Ann DaCosta, Heather Jacobs, and Grace Porter over here. So we're on YouTube and we are on Facebook. If you're having trouble with chat on either, you can come to either one. This will remain up after the show. So if you're like seeing this and you're like, oh, I'm at work, I don't want to get fired, go ahead, just save it. It will be on replay here on Facebook and on YouTube after. All the resources will be there for you before and after. So you don't have any pressure, though. We'd love to have you if you're free to be live today. Now, Facebook has been crazy lately. And if we get attacked by a spam bot trying to get you guys to follow a link off the website, it shuts down any links, and that's been getting all of our wonderful moderators into trouble with Facebook. So what we're going to do is we're going to let them just tell you where stuff is. And even though it's normally our inclination to share with you the direct links to where stuff is, we're going to avoid that so we don't get them put in Facebook jail.
Yay!
Yay! Platforms, they're all crazy. Really, seriously, I've been on all of them. They all have stuff. Oh, hi, Grace Porter is here. All right, and I see C. Blanton on Jen Butterfly. Yay, yay, yay. This is going to be a lot of fun. So you see what we're painting today, this loose butterfly. I'm going to put this aside, and I'm going to be working on Artistico Fabriano paper, 140-pound cold press. What does all that mean? It means that it's very thick and heavy. It's made with 100% cotton, so it holds water in a consistent way, and it's bumpy. That's what cold press means, is bumpy. I also have this in a block, and blocks are where all of the pages are kind of glued together, and then you just have a little area that you can release the page. And what that does, especially in a technique like this, is prevents kind of a warping or wobbling of the page, and can be very great for you as a beginner to not be struggling with the whole page bowing or doing something crazy, because the paper does warp when wet. You can also tape down your paper. You can soak both sides and tape it down if you don't have the option of having a pad. What I will say to you is before you even upgrade your paint, upgrade your paper, I personally recommend Fabriano. Let me explain to you my relationship with them. I'm friends with them, and they do send me pads, but I also buy pads. So it is what I buy when I buy. They like me, so they send me pads. But 100%, my recommendation to you about this paper is just that it's a fabulous experience to paint on. 100%. If it wasn't, I might still be friends with them because they're all still lovely, but I wouldn't talk about their product no matter what. So, but luckily, it is good, so we're friends, and I can talk about it. Ooh, I see Jeanette's, I think it's Sweet, and Vicki Anderson, and Pat Taylor, Bella, and Sherry, and Diana. I love our Facebook family. Hi, Facebook family. Hi, YouTube family. Are you guys ready?
You see this?
Now, I have a bottle sprayer here for ants. It's a micro sprayer, and it is really terrific because it does a fine mist of watercolor. I also have a nice big wash brush. This is the Soft Aqua by Raphael, and it is great. It does watercolor or ink. It is a synthetic squirrel. I'm also friends with the people over at Raphael. So, like, what it is I love products, and then I go to the art events, and I make friends with the people who make those products. If you're just wondering, how did all this happen? That's how it happened to me, because I'll come by and be like, you're so wonderful, and then it's great. So, I do like this, but any wash brush will work. You're just trying to get a thin layer out. Now, a trick I have is, because I want the water to be clean, I can mist my paper with water, or what I can do is I can dip in water and just make sure that there is a wet coating, right? If I just do this in here. Now, this is wet enough to be shiny. It shouldn't be puddling, right? So wet enough to be shiny, should not be puddling. I'm going to go back and forth. I have Pyro Red, or if you're doing the Sennelier, it's Sennelier Red. I have Nickel Azo Yellow. fancy yellow, any yellow, just a bright, fun yellow. Opera pink. Opera pink is wonderful. I use the Sennelier. You could use any, just, it's a bright pink. It's just a pop of pink. I have Ultramarine Blue. I have Quinacridone Magenta. And I forgot to put out my Phthalo Blue. So I'll put out a little Phthalo Blue because I think I use a little tiny bit in this. So this tube of watercolor, which seems small, is actually giant and will last. I mean, the paint, if I didn't paint as fast as I did, probably would dry in the tube before I got any of it out. And I'm going to begin with just a number 14 round. It's not a particularly big brush. I'm going to get it wet. And let's start with a kind of light purple. So I'm going to take my Ultramarine Blue and my Quinacridone, and I'm going to mix them together, and it's going to create a purple. I'm going to add a lot of water to that, right? See how it's a very wet purple? And I'm going to come here. Now I have a vertical line I've softly drawn in pencil, and I've done a couple little arcs coming up. But if I'm down here in my lower third, I'm going to come right here and brush up in an arc that little bit of purple. I'm going to come back a couple of strokes and sort of very lightly fill that in. It's such a light color, guys, and it's going to be really diffusing. It's going to be blooming out onto the paper. I see Carolyn A. Love. All right, so we're going to load back up. Now, I might come here and kind of just imply the little butterfly body, which is just a little line that goes back on an angle from here to here on the paper. He's just barely there. Come back on the bottom wing, little brush strokes out. When I come towards the center, I'll switch the curve of the direction and join back up. Over here, we're going to kind of be arcing up, just brushing out. And again, the paper is still wet, so everything is just diffusing and so soft. Just diffusing and so soft. You can come here and add a few more little flares to that. I'm going to come right here again in that 3/4 area and just brush up. Now, you can put the traceable right on the paper and just do this right over the traceable. That is okay. You just might have a few lines. What you need to realize that in watercolor, lines are all right. Let's bring a little arc here and see how I'm just loosely implying those wings. See how that's a light wash, right? Karen says A4 was a canvas size. A4 is a type of paper, and you can't really do watercolor easily on A4 or paint acrylic. Is it a size?
Yeah, A4 is a size that has to do with how they cut paper.
Right, but isn't it like for printer?
Yeah, generally you find that A size paper is slightly larger than its counterpart to a cut paper. And so there's like I think
it's very common in England. I get that question most commonly from Europe.
Yeah, A4, A3, A2 are the cuts. So
what it is the weight of the paper, and the make of the paper is generally too light and not designed for watercolor, and it doesn't have the sizing, that's the glue, in the paper that lends itself to watercolor. Am I correct, John? John does a lot of our printing.
Can be. Anything that's measured by a number is typically for a printer and probably not what you're looking for.
Yeah. Now, I had this in, and what you will notice is that your paper will be getting slightly drier, right? Slightly drier, and that's what we want. We're going to come in, I'm going to get a little bit of my opera pink. That's a fun color.
That's not always true, because sometimes they measure paper in weird ways. Just know it's a measurement.
Okay. I'm going to come back for my butterfly body, and I'm going to just make a little loose brush stroke up. And a little bit here into the wing. See, I came back to that same point and brush stroke out and in. Just releasing the strokes, just keeping them loose. All right, so that part is re-wetting that part of the wing. I might come in and get a little more of my ultramarine blue and a little more of my pink here. Stroke out a little bit there. I'm here, just again, layering it up. So our first diffuse is still there. It's still happening. It's just a little bit lighter. These little strokes kind of curve and have a lot of flow to them. And what you want to be paying attention to is like, oh, well, when my paper is very wet, it blooms one way, but when it's damp, it blooms another way. How does that feel? How does that affect your control as the artist? Those are the things you are playing for. And we paint on this all the way through dry, which is kind of a lot of fun, I think.
Huh.
You know, because you really start to learn the different applications of the paint and how it's going to affect you.
So light.
It is so light. Now I'm going to come here into my Ultramarine Blue and my Quinacridone again, and I make purple. You could just use purple. If you're using the cake pans of paint, you know, you might be like, oh, I'm going to just, you know, have this be purple. I'm going to bring this purple down here between the wings. Kind of making the butterfly body. Gonna rinse that out, and I'm going to go ahead and get into my little bit of my Phthalo Blue.
Thank
I'm
you
going
so
to be
much.
just making little loose brush strokes out to start to define these little wings. And you can see on the edges where it's dry, it gets a little bit tighter, but where it's still wet into the wing, it stays fairly controlled. I'm here. Little loose brush strokes here at the ends. It can be a little bit unnerving to paint in this open way. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. I really appreciate that. And Lollipop Strawberry says you can use oil pastels instead of using paint. Correct. And Amy Over says butterflies are so pretty. Tonya, is the outline tutorial available later? I have no confidence in my ability to follow along skills. Yeah, totally available. Right after the show. There we go. Feel like the butterfly is on the website, but I have not verified that, so I'm saying that in a very kind of unconfident way. But I will become confident after the show. So what I'm doing there is I just added a little bit of extra blue, just because I felt like I could use that. I'm going to come into my Ultramarine Blue here, pulling that in. Now, down here in the bottom, I'm going to get a little of my Pyrrole Red going maybe. And I'll go over to my Azo Yellow and I'll make a nice little orange. Making 2 little brush strokes down, so I come down, wiggle, wiggle. Just a little bit. Let's get some orange going maybe up in this wing a bit. And even come up. One of the other fun ones is the Opera Pink and the Nickel Azo Yellow, or any yellow, really.
They like the opera pink.
It's just a great color. Just bring that in there very wet. Very, very, very wet. Now, while it's all wet, one of the things I can do is I can take a bit of a color, right? Like my Opera Pink and my yellow, and I can splatter, and you will get dry kind of contained splatters outside of the wet areas of the wings. And inside the wet areas of the wings, that splatter will diffuse and bloom. A little bit of just yellow. I think I'm going to rinse out and come back with a little bit of Opera Pink. Now, something to know about your watercolor. What it looks like right now is not how it looks when it's finished. It changes a great deal. And that is because as the paint dries and continues to pull into the paper, it will soften and diffuse and change. Almost think of it as developing. Yay! And Bella says, gorgeous butterfly. And Larry says, so creative. I appreciate it. Can you scroll back up on that? I saw someone said they missed the beginning of the class. On Facebook.
Which one?
Go up a little bit.
On Facebook or YouTube?
Yeah, Facebook. Judy says, I missed the beginning of the video and now I am too far behind. Judy, this is going to be a short video. You can just watch us go through it and then replay as soon as it's over and you're okay. Something you might not know about live painting videos. What I love as a teacher, that's almost easier than being live with people, is you don't have to keep up with me. You can pause me. You can rewind me. You can mute me. If you don't like how I'm talking, you'll be like, I get this comment a lot. I love your art. You not so much. I'm like, that's cool. Mute me. It's fine. I'm not offended. You do you, boo. It's all good. All right, I'm going to continue on. I'm going to get a little bit of my purple again. I'm going to take my Quinacridone and my Quin Magenta. And at this point, some of my butterfly is not quite as wet as it was, so I can take this darker color. And it still blooms, it still softens, right? But not in the same way it did before. I'm going to come down the middle. You can see it's blooming, it's creating structure. Not the only structure, but just some. And I can come on the outside of this little wing here. And I'm doing kind of almost like a calligraphy stroke. It's like a writing stroke where I'm on the toe of the brush and I'm coming around the contour of the wings and just being loose and, see, just almost playful. And that just helps define the base of those wings. I'm going to come in and get a little bit of my opera pink. And brush stroke out some of that color just to create, again, a little wing definition. Similar to what I did on the bottom wing. And I can even come into a little bit of my Phthalo Blue and Quinacridone Magenta, which make a much deeper indigo. Just come to the outside where the areas are dry. Just that. And really, guys, that's all there is to that. And you can do this more than once. You can do them small, you can do them big, you can practice with different colors. But what you're learning when you start from the fully wet paper and then continue to work it as it dries and dries and dries is how the paper changes, right? And I'm resisting using even a hairdryer on this because, and I don't know if there's any way for John to show it, but even as these drops dry, they change so much. The wet drop, this drop will be so different dry than it is right now. So you really want to let everything finish out before you even decide how you feel about your painting. It's kind of a wait and see. Hi, Carolyn A. Love. And then Sharon says, I can't mute you. I love your verbal instruction and hearing your heart. Well, thank you so much. Darcy Collins says, does the angle of the picture to the angle of the paper affect how the paint flows? No, it really is all one. What happens, though, is when you wet the whole page, it will buckle and weft. And the buckling is what will affect where the paint tends to pool and puddle, which is why we want to either pre-stretch our paper, which is an active soaking both sides, putting it down on a flat board or flat piece of glass and taping it down, or using a watercolor block. Now, on my Amazon store that I do, it's like, I guess, hashtag ad for the FTC. I have an Amazon store. Yes, I do get an affiliate. You can just use it as a shopping list. You don't have to buy from there. I have lists of things that I have tried that I'm happy with. The thing to know about Strathmore buys its paper in bulk lots, and sometimes it's better than other times. So it's kind of a hit and miss, but when it hits, it's great. And when it misses, I'm super sorry. You'll know when it happens. You can just write them and say no. Vanessa is talking about the paper in Europe. Just other confusion about A4. It's a European size. They have A3, A4, A5, etc. The higher the number, the smaller the paper, board, canvas, etc. Oh, and Amy says she missed it again. Somebody ask her. What is Amy asking me? What question did I miss? That
Okay, that was, let me see if I can. It was if you were going to do the red lantern painting next month. The red lantern painting I think we were supposed to do like last year.
Red Lantern? Or do you mean the Disney one?
I don't know.
I think you mean the Disney one.
Could be.
Amy means Disney. I'm still a little afraid of Disney. Amy? I don't know. It's been a challenging time on the platforms. You know, I like it. I'm into it. I have to do it. I don't know, Amy. My honest answer is I will promise you tons of art classes. when it comes to Disney, what will happen is it's kind of like you ever been like on one of those kind of gorges where you have to jump off a high rock into a deep area of water and you're like, you go there and like, you don't know if you're going to jump and then you go back and your friends are all jumping. You don't know and you don't know and you don't know. And then all of a sudden you jump, but you don't really know you're going to jump on that jump. That's kind of how I am with Disney, right? Like with Star Wars, with Disney, with just all of it. Like sometimes I'll just jump in and I'll be like, let the lawyers handle it. And then other times I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to lose my channel. So I really flip. So if that's what we mean, that's what's going on. Can watercolor gouache be used instead of liquid white acrylic? Absolutely, it can. Umet. I hope I'm not butchering that. Yeah. Amy's like, I tangled lantern. Yeah, that's where I'm just at with the tangled thing. I just don't know. The thing is, Rapunzel is an old property, but the graphics that Disney creates around these old properties belong to them. And they're having kind of a weird hard year, so I don't know how they're feeling culturally. I got have to look to see how many takedown notices they're doing over on Etsy. That's literally how I make that decision. And LD is sharing the red lantern I did for the Q-tip cherry tree. Oh, I love that painting. I wish I was doing mini books back when I did that painting. I love that painting so much. Kathy Hill says, how often do you post live paintings like this? So right now we're in the middle of some family chaos, but normally there's a watercolor Wednesday every Wednesday. And then there are 1 to 3 acrylic painting lessons, which is why I personally have 1,500, or it's maybe more than 1,500 lessons on my website now. So we do anywhere between 150 and 250 lessons between acrylic or watercolor a year. However, coming up, there's this big news that's coming at the end of June, the beginning of my birthday. Happy birthday to me, where watercolor is going to suddenly get a ton of lessons. You guys are going to freak out when you see what's coming. I'm so excited. It's like, it's such a dream come true. We're going to be doing some cool stuff together. Marion says, can you do a video on how to mount and frame watercolor, please? I can. I can.
That'll be fun.
That's a good one to do. C. Blanton says, Cinnamon, how can I find the name to my Sennelier palette? No names were on it. I'm confused what you mean by that. You mean there were no names on the... Oh, do you mean from the retreat when we put out the paint on your palettes? If that's what you mean...
They're just metal butcher trays.
The metal butcher tray, is that what you mean? Yeah, the pants.
Yeah, they were just...
Or they bought the pants. You can find... Okay, so I've had this happen to me before, C. Blanton, and then I will give this tip. So say you buy a watercolor pan palette and somehow you accidentally throw out the names of the placement of the colors, or you don't see them, or the packaging gets thrown away and you're like, I don't know what's on there. You can go online, you can use Amazon or the Sennelier website to do this, and you find the exact paint palette that you have, and it will give you a layout of the pans on there. On top of that, I have found on Pinterest, sometimes artists will swatch the pans, and they may have swatched the pan that you have. And I may have swatched the pan that you have somewhere in one of my watercolor blogs, and they may have laid that out. So if ever you lose the colors, I don't care if it's schmicky, I don't care if it's koi watercolors, all cheap from Amazon. Somebody somewhere has swatched it and posted it online, and you can find that. You just search swatch and then name the exact watercolor pan you have. Something will pull up, or you go to the company's website and it will lay it out for you. Is that okay? So I'm going to just say, is that the answer you were looking for, young Jedi? Because that's what I'm wondering. Lindell Smith says, thank you. And LD says, I'm loaded with goodies. This goodie is the best goodie you've ever seen coming up. I'm super excited. Kelly Peterson, does it matter if a butcher tray is convex? If you mean convex at the base, yeah, because the watercolor could pull all to the bottom. You do want it to be level, right? You want it to not be bowed in any way, because you don't want... See how the... where there is a little bit of a bow, the watercolor kind of pulled here. That's okay at the edges. I can control that. But you want the places that you wash it out to stay stable. And the reason that we like ceramic butcher trays, or like ceramic coated butcher trays, or ceramic, is because see how the watercolor stays where I washed it out? I can reactivate that anytime, right? Like I can come here any minute and get a little of that color again and come back and paint. So I never lose my paint at all. It's the best. It's my favorite. I think I used less brushes than I thought I was going to have to use this time, John. See, I'll reactivate it. See, it's just reactivatable. I'm going to use my little, this is if you're wondering what this one, this is a Raphael Precision. They do acrylic or watercolor. They're a pretty good brush. I like them. But there are a lot of good brushes out there. So I'm not trying to say you have to have this one or that one or Obi-Wan Sherpanobi. Oh, congratulations on all the things you get for us. You work so hard and we benefit so much. You guys are so welcome. And listen, hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button on Facebook. I would hit both. Whenever you see me post an event on Facebook, hit that too. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, but sometimes you subscribe and the channel doesn't notify you. I have no control over that. YouTube does that. Or sometimes you follow the page and the page doesn't notify you. If you hit remind on the video, if you hit follow on the page, if you hit subscribe with the bell, and if you follow an event, that will mean somebody somewhere is going to notify you about the lesson. Generally in Facebook and YouTube, what I found is if you do follow all, it will give you notifications, at least through email. And then we have I'm going to say the wrong thing. I was going to say DeviantArt, but that's not it. It's what's the John? What is the online thing that we have? It's not Deviant. I've replaced Deviant with the name of what it is. It's Discord. Now you see why I did that. We have a Discord, and we have moderators on Discord who try to make sure you guys also get notifications of upcoming events, and those seem to work out really good, and you get pictures and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So that is the bug that is running that, and if anybody would like to also volunteer and help with that element of Discord, because the bug works, jobs. So annoying. It just interferes with moderation so much, doesn't it? Jobs. Yeah. If you could help over in Discord, that's great. And if you're into Discord, that's another place that we have. Guys, this has just been the worst lately. We all know it. And I just want to say, I'm glad you took a minute to get away from the just worry and concern and frustration that we're all feeling right now. And if you can make a little time in your life every day, right? Like, yes, we have to solve big problems, but if you can take little time every day to just step away from your life, from the world for a second and be creative. Maybe it's a doodle at work. Maybe it's a little painting with me. It doesn't really matter, but give yourself a little tiny break every day. We are under more pressure than any generation or civilization of humanity has ever been under. And that's saying something because history is crazy, right? Yeah. But even in old bad history, old timey times, right? Like War of the Roses, that was terrible. But at least you didn't have the internet coming at you, right? You got to go home and be quiet in your head. And we don't have that anymore. So give that to yourself. Give that gift to yourself. And on that note, be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. And I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye.